Today on Trucks. It's one of the most popular projects Stacey's ever built, and you've waited a long time to see it finished. Well, today is the big day. On roads, mud, and even water. We're pushing Project Wicked Willys to the very edge to see if it will run as good as it looks.
Whoa! You want more of that? Keep watching Trucks! Welcome to Trucks. You are going to love this week's show. You know, sometimes when you look at a project like this old Bronco and you see floors that look like they're made out of Swiss cheese and a body that's just beat all to pieces and a suspension that's totally thrashed, well, that can be a little overwhelming. Matter of fact, it really doesn't seem like this could ever be anything worth talking about again. But I'm here to tell you, if you take your time, don't get discouraged, you might be surprised what you eventually end up with. That brings me up to the subject of today's show. It's without a doubt one of the most popular vehicles that I've ever built, and you guys have waited a long time to see it in action. So, today is the day, and the vehicle, just in case you haven't guessed, is the Wicked Willys. All right, when I first sat down and designed Project Wicked Willys, its purpose was twofold. First, it needed to have a bulletproof drivetrain to handle extreme four-wheeling, and two, well, it needed to look good, and that can be a pretty tough combination. Of course, standing here looking at the finished truck, it's pretty easy to forget that this is an entirely different animal than what I originally started out with. Now, just in case you don't remember or you missed it, here's a look at the buildup from the beginning. It all began with a stock 1955 Willys Wagon that I bought from a buddy. It had the usual rust in the quarters and the floor, but overall it was in pretty good shape. The engine and running gear was all stock and very worn out, but that was all right because that was all about to change. The first job on a very long list was to disassemble the front clip, remove the interior, then lift off the body so we could get to the original drivetrain and pull it out. Replacing the old drivetrain is a high-performance clutch, a massive NV 4500 5-speed transmission, and a bulletproof Atlas II transfer case. Of course, that was all bolted behind a huge Dodge 360 Magnum crate motor kicking out about 350 horses. Then it was all centered, squared up in the frame, and finally custom motor mounts and transmission mounts were fabricated and welded into place. To make the frame strong enough to support that heavy-duty drivetrain, I boxed the entire frame, then welded in a TCI pedal assembly to hold the clutch and brake master cylinders and bring the new pedals up through the floor in the stock location. The rear axle is a Curry high-pinion 9-inch Ford, and it's held in place with custom springs that supply 6 inches of lift. The front axle is a custom Dana 44 from Hicks 4x4, and of course disc brakes are at all 4 corners so we can get those big 35-inch super swampers to stop. Finally, big heavy-duty custom drive shafts from Tom Woods tie the drivetrain to the axles and also eliminate a potential weak spot. Next, it was time to deal with that rusty body, and I replaced both front floor pans, both rockers, and the floor supports with new metal. Then I shot the newly restored body with a very cool House of Colors Sherwood Green Pearl. Yeah. I followed that up with the interior and threw in custom carpet, door and side panels, gauges and dash, seats, and a tilt steering column with a custom wheel. All right, that shows you what I started out with and gives you a very quick overview of the buildup of the Wicked Willys. Now that brings us up to date, except for a couple things. Now to finish off the body, I custom made these wooden panels that fit into the indentations of the body. Now that not only gives us a really cool woody wagon look, but the light color of the wood also breaks up the dark green, and that looks really cool. Now obviously the wood is sealed both inside and out, and it's got a ton of clear coat on it. But something you need to remember about exterior wood, it will eventually deteriorate and you'll have to replace it. But the hard work is done because now you've got those to use as a pattern. Under the hood, you can see just how nice everything tucked up inside here. Now, I did have to recess the firewall 2 inches to make room for the distributor on that big 360. And as you can see, I didn't have room for a mechanical fan. But that's all right because an electric will work just as good. Up front, I've got a bumper that I carved out of an S10 bumper. Now, it not only holds the winch in here, but I also left these ends on to serve as guides. Now, let me show you what I mean. Notice the height of the bumper is right at the same height as the fenders, the rockers, and of course the transfer case up underneath. That way, if I start hitting big rocks and stuff with the bumper, well, it's a pretty good indicator that I'll probably hit my rockers or my transfer case and cause some serious damage. So the bumper acts as an early warning system. Primitive, but it works. Okay, now there is no doubt that the Wicked Willys is impressive looking. But I know the question that's driving you crazy is how well does all this stuff work together? Is it just a street machine with big tires? Or is it an off-roader that's trying to look good? Or is it the perfect combination of both? Well, I already know the answer to that question because I have already put a few scratches on this thing that you don't know about. But you're going to have to wait till after the break to find out the answer to that yourself.
Next today, it's payoff time as we tackle the mean streets in an even meaner ride. And later, Captain Stacey's taking us down the river and up the creek bank, that is.
Welcome back to Trucks. All right, before the break, we took you through the extensive frame-up restoration of Project Wicked Willys, just to refresh your memory on what we did to it. Now it's time to take it out on the highway and see how it does on the road. Remember, it doesn't do you any good to have a really cool four-wheel drive if you got to trailer it everywhere when you want to go four-wheeling because it's not street legal. So, we're going to see how this thing does on the highway first. So, here we go. Okay, first things first. Having those original gauges restored and recalibrated by United Speedometer was worth every penny. Because not only do they look really cool, but they also retain the original style of the dash. And man, I love that. Now the best part is, since all the internal workings are brand new, well heck, those are just as accurate as anything you can buy in the market now. The seat and steering combination is extremely comfortable, and it sits me up high enough to where I can look out over the hood and the fenders. Very important when you want to go four-wheeling. Also, shifter's right here by my right hand where it should be. All right, we're putting along here at about 20 miles an hour, and everything feels great. But the speed limit is much more than this, and that big old 360 is just begging for me to jump on it. So, who am I to argue with Mother Mopar? You might want to hold on to something. Man, that's great! Oh, the sound, man, the sound of that is great. All right, now there's no doubt that the NV4500 is an awesome truck transmission, but it is not for speed shifting. So, it's not going to shift like a Richmond or a Muncie or something like that, but it does have something that most of those don't have, and that is gear number 5. So I can cruise all day long on the freeway. Now we're tooling along at about 70, and check out these radial super swampers. Yeah, you can hear them, but they're not that bad. They're actually a lot better than I thought they'd be. This is livable. Now the steering, heck, it's great. Light, easy, no wandering. Heck, for what this is, that is impressive. The handling of the Willys is excellent, except for one thing. I don't have any sway bars on it, so I get good exoflex when I'm off-roading. Unfortunately, that means that when I go around a sharp corner, or I'm accelerating heavily, I'm going to get some body lean. Now, driving around town, this can just be mildly annoying. But if you're gonna take an exit ramp or make a quick maneuver on the freeway, whoa, yeah, it can be a little dangerous. Which means I am gonna have to rig up a sway bar system on this truck. Whoa! Around town, the Willys is surprisingly maneuverable in spite of how big it is. And it will sit and idle in traffic all day long without overheating. That is nice. The visual impact of the Wicked Willys is what is really amazing. In a sea of drab, dull, boring cars and trucks, well, it stands out like a big old green watermelon. And I'll tell you what, I've gotten more thumbs up with this truck than almost anything I've ever built. Well, that wraps up the road tests of Project Wicked Willys. And here's what we got. We have a solid, reliable truck that handles surprisingly well on the road. It accelerates like a mother. And visually, shoot, it absolutely knocks people's socks off. Unfortunately, it also has a lot of body roll around corners, and you know it gets bad gas mileage. But as you probably guessed, it's time for a break. But after the break, well, I'm gonna take this thing out to places where there aren't any roads, and then we'll find out what it'll do. And I've got a spot for you right in the back seat, so hurry back.
Next, the mud's flying as the Willys proves it's as much go as it is show. Stay tuned. Just can't get enough of trucks? Check us out online at truckstv.com.
Welcome back to Trucks and the full-blown road test of Project Wicked Willys. Now, earlier in the show, it took you through the full buildup of this vehicle. Then I took it out on the highway, showed you what kind of road manners it's got. Now it's time to kick this thing in four-wheel drive and get with it. Now, before I start hammering on this thing, there's some prep work I need to do. First, I'm gonna knock off these spinners. That way I don't bust them up on the rocks and stuff. Then it's also a good idea to take some Armor All or a solution of baby oil and spray the whole undercarriage of the vehicle. That way when you get it muddy, when you go to clean it up, well shoot, it'll just hose right off. Now once I get all this done, it's time to rock. All right, let's check out what kind of gears we got. Now, low gears are important because it allows you to use the power and the torque of your engine and still keep your speeds down so you don't end up tearing things up or worse, rolling down a mountain. It's easy enough to do that anyway. Now notice, everything in first gear, low range, no feet on the pedals, and we're literally just crawling along here. But what's really amazing is we continue to crawl as we go up this steep hill. No foot on the gas, motor's idling. That is what low gears do for you. And that is amazing. The next thing we're going to look at is axle articulation and wheel travel. Now you can see why there's no sway bars on the Willys. This allows the axles to pivot, move, and let the truck slink over tough obstacles and keep most of the tires on the ground. Awesome. Now, low gearing is great, but you gotta know how to use it. Now, I'm sitting here trying to crawl up this really steep hill, and I've got the power to do it, but it's muddy. I'm just gonna sit here and dig my way to China. I'm not gonna get anywhere. Now, does that mean that I can't make this hill? Heck no. What I'm gonna do is back up, select a higher gear, get a little bit of run, a little bit of momentum, we'll blow through this thing. All right, driving in mud is a whole different approach to rock crawling. You need to have some momentum and some wheel spin to get this thing to, so you don't lock up your tires with mud. And it is a ball. Yeah. And horsepower with the Wicked Willys is as close as a goose on the gas pedal. one drawback to playing in the mud. But one of these days you're gonna have to clean it up. Well, what the heck?
After the break, Stacey's convinced himself this wicked green watermelon can fly, and he may just be right.
Welcome back to Trucks, where we're test driving the Wicked Willys. Now, we've already done a lot, but we still have a lot more to do, so hold on and let's go. All right, when you're driving in water, and you've already checked to see how deep it is so you don't drown yourself, you want to be careful that you don't get too much tire spin, because a sharp rock on a wet tire is just like a knife on soft butter. It'll slice your tires all to pieces. And at the cost of a super swamper, you don't want to do that. But you don't want to get stuck either. It's a fine line there. Oh, big rocks. All right, if you're gonna try a hill like this, well, it's not just how steep it is, it's also this breakover angle up here on top, because that is where you can damage your transfer case, high center the vehicle, and worst thing is bust your body up. Now, this looks pretty close. I'll tell you what, you can look at them all day long, but eventually you're gonna have to try it, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. Now, not all four-wheeling's about going slow. Sometimes you gotta goose it to get over the hill, which is what we gotta do here. And by the way, there's no seat belts back there. Whoa! We're close. Wow, that takes care of the test drive of the Wicked Willys. It did everything that I expected it to do on the highway, no surprises there. And it took everything I could throw at it off-road and made it look easy. Matter of fact, once I get it cleaned up, shoot, you'll never be able to tell I took this thing wheeling. Except for a few scratches, but those are badges, man. Those are battle scars. Now, you might be thinking, why in the world would I spend so much time and money building something like this and then be so unmerciful to it? Well, I designed it to be driven like that, and you deserve to see what it can do. And if it can't handle what it was built for, well, it's really not the Wicked Willys, is it?
And now truck gear, parts, tools, and equipment for pickups and sport utilities.
In the world of power tools, there are some that you've just got to have if you're a do-it-yourselfer. Things like a drill and a jigsaw, absolutely imperative if you're going to finish some of your projects. Now, wouldn't it be cool if one tool did the job of all of these? Impossible? Nope. Black & Decker has come out with the Firestorm multi-tool. Now, the magic to this tool is you have a single power unit that goes from a drill to a jigsaw to a detail sander, all in just a matter of seconds. Now, it also comes with an extra battery, a charger, and a really cool carrying case so you don't lose these parts all over the garage. Now, you can pick up one of these power tools for about 70 bucks. One tool that every mechanic has got to have is a creeper, so you can roll underneath vehicles. However, they have one major flaw. Any kind of trash that you hit with those wheels is going to stop you dead in your tracks. And that usually happens when you're buried under a truck, greasy tools in either hand. But there is a solution to this problem, and it is called the Creeper Sweeper by Butler and Associates. Now, it's a custom caster. It's got a little bristle brush mounted in front of the wheel, and it clears a path so nothing gets up under there and locks up that wheel. Ingenious design. Now, these bolt right in place of your stock caster, and they're only $8 each. For a price like that, everybody needs some of these. Check that out.
Next week on Trucks. It may not look like much now, but this old Bronco is the start of Project Crazy Horse. And Stacey's got a mess on his hands as he begins throwing out the bad and bolting on the good. Then we'll take a look at a cool 48 Chevy street truck that's on loan from Stacey's bank officer. That's all next week on Trucks. For a VHS copy of today's show, call toll-free 1-877-853-7260. Show videos are just $12.95 plus shipping and handling. Trucks is an RTM production.